Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers Channel. Today, we will learn about the explosive developments surrounding Curtis Ashford and the shocking possibility that he could become the prime suspect in Drew Cain's shooting investigation. The latest insider information from Port Charles suggests that Curtis's world is about to be turned completely upside down as law enforcement closes in on what they believe could be a breakthrough in this perplexing case that has captivated viewers for weeks. Curtis faces potential arrest. The shocking promotional footage released for this week's episodes reveals a jaw-dropping moment where Curtis Ashford appears absolutely blindsided and visibly shaken as he confronts Detective Nathan West with a question that no innocent person ever wants to ask. Am I being arrested? The expression of disbelief etched across Curtis's face in that brief but powerful clip speaks volumes about the magnitude of what's unfolding around him. This stunning development comes at possibly the worst time imaginable for Curtis, who has been working diligently to rebuild his life and move forward after the turbulent dissolution of his marriage to Portia Robinson. The timing of this potential arrest couldn't be more devastating, as Curtis has finally started to find happiness again in his rekindled relationship with his former flame, Jordan Ashford, making this legal nightmare all the more complicated and emotionally charged. The investigation takes an unexpected turn. During the pivotal week spanning November 24th through November 28th, Detective Dante Falconeri made the critical decision to revisit the Drew Cain shooting case from a fresh perspective. Despite the fact that Willow Tate has been positioned as the primary suspect throughout much of the ongoing investigation, Dandy's investigative instincts told him that something wasn't quite adding up with the existing evidence, prompting him to reach out to his colleague Nathan West for a second opinion and fresh set of eyes on the increasingly complex case file. The seasoned detective's gut feeling that there might be more to this story than initially met the eye proved to be justified when he began examining certain inconsistencies in the witness statements and timeline of events. What particularly caught Dandy's attention during his meticulous review of the case materials was the contentious and well-documented history of bitter animosity between Curtis Ashford and Drew Cain, a feud that had escalated dramatically in recent months and become public knowledge throughout Port Charles. The profound tension between these two men, fueled by personal betrayals and professional rivalries, suddenly made Curtis appear as a viable alternative suspect worthy of deeper investigation. Drew's ulterior motives come to light. The most unsettling revelation emerging from this tangled web of deceit is that Curtis almost certainly had nothing whatsoever to do with the actual shooting of Drew Cain. Yet he may very well find himself framed and falsely accused of this serious crime by none other than the victim himself. Drew's true motivations have become increasingly transparent to those paying close attention to his behavior following the shooting incident. The congressman has shown a disturbing lack of genuine interest in identifying his actual assailant, instead choosing to weaponize the investigation as a tool of revenge against those he perceives as enemies and obstacles to his political ambitions. If Drew's original target, Michael Corinthos, successfully evades prosecution due to insufficient evidence or airtight alibis, then the vindictive politician would derive immense satisfaction from watching Curtis take the fall instead. Drew's calculated manipulation of the justice system reveals a deeply troubling pattern of behavior that prioritizes personal vendettas over truth and justice, raising serious questions about his fitness for public office. Portia's dangerous, secret, and desperate measures. The situation becomes exponentially more complicated when factoring in the potential involvement of Curtis's estranged wife, Portia Robinson, who finds herself in an extraordinarily precarious position that threatens to expose her most closely guarded secrets. Just last week, Portia received some deeply unsettling intelligence from her confidant and occasional partner in schemes, Ava Jerome, who informed her that Nina Reeves had brazenly identified Portia as another potential suspect in Drew's shooting during conversations with investigators. This revelation sent Portia's mind into overdrive. frantically calculating the potential ramifications and desperately searching for ways to deflect suspicion away from herself before the investigation could dig too deeply into her activities on the night in question. The problem confronting Portia is that while she does possess a legitimate alibi that would theoretically clear her name, revealing the truth about her whereabouts during those critical hours would unleash a cascade of devastating personal consequences that she's determined to avoid at virtually any cost. The Isaiah Gannon complication. The reason for Portia's extreme reluctance to come forward with her alibi stems from the scandalous truth that she was engaged in a passionate romantic encounter with her General Hospital colleague, Dr. Isaiah Gannon, at the precise time when Drew Cain was shot. This illicit liaison has already produced life-altering consequences, as Portia recently discovered that she's carrying a child whose paternity remains uncertain and deeply troubling. Curtis has become aware of Portia's pregnancy, which only intensifies the emotional stakes and potential for explosive confrontations as the truth inevitably begins to surface. Portia had been desperately hoping to maintain absolute secrecy regarding her affair with Isaiah until she could arrange for a discreet DNA test to determine with scientific certainty whether Curtis or Isaiah is the biological father of her unborn baby. The prospect of having to publicly acknowledge her infidelity and the resulting pregnancy before she has these crucial answers fills Portia with dread and motivates her to consider increasingly unethical options for self-preservation. A master manipulator's next move. Those familiar with Portia Robinson's history and patterns of behavior understand that she possesses formidable skills in manipulation and strategic thinking when her back is against the wall and her secrets are threatened with exposure. If Portia can devise any plausible method to redirect the investigative spotlight away from her own suspicious circumstances and refocus it squarely on Curtis, she won't hesitate for even a moment to execute such a plan, regardless of the devastating impact it would have on her estranged husband's life and freedom. Her motivation to throw Curtis under the proverbial bus has been significantly amplified by her growing resentment over his blossoming relationship with Jordan Ashford, a woman Portia considers a frenemy at best and a romantic rival at worst. The sight of Curtis finding happiness and moving forward with Jordan while Portia grapples with her own messy complications adds an extra layer of bitter jealousy to her already dubious decision-making process, making her an unpredictable and potentially dangerous player in this unfolding drama. The mystery deepens. General Hospital spoilers are teasing that the already intense drama surrounding the whodunit mystery of Drew Cain's shooting will reach absolutely fever-pitch intensity during the crucial week of December 1st through December 5th, with shocking revelations and unexpected twists that will leave viewers breathless. The question that continues to haunt longtime fans of the show is whether the writers will finally unveil the true identity of the person who pulled the trigger, or if this mystery will continue to unfold slowly over the coming weeks and months, keeping audiences guessing and speculating about every character's potential involvement. The interconnected web of lies, secrets, betrayals, and hidden agendas has created a situation where almost anyone in Drew's orbit could theoretically be the shooter, making this one of the most complex and engaging mysteries General Hospital has presented in recent memory. As Curtis potentially faces arrest for a crime he didn't commit, the real question becomes whether the truth will emerge in time to save an innocent man from being destroyed by the machinations of those more interested in protecting themselves than seeking justice. Next, we will learn about the explosive confrontation brewing between the dangerous Jen Sidwell and Port Charles' most notorious mob boss Sonny Corinthos, and how Sidwell's ruthless tactics are about to push Sonny into an impossible corner that could ignite a war neither man may survive. Sidwell's fury over Measure C defeat. The recent defeat of Measure C has left Jen Sidwell absolutely seething with rage and frustration. This critical vote represented far more than just a political setback for the cunning businessman. It symbolized the complete collapse of his carefully orchestrated plan to seize control of Sonny Corinthos' lucrative waterfront piers. These piers aren't just property, They're the lifeblood of Sonny's entire criminal empire, serving as vital entry points for his various business operations throughout Port Charles. Sidwell had invested considerable time, money, and political capital into manipulating the outcome of this vote, only to watch his ambitions crumble before his eyes. However, anyone who knows Sidwell understands that he's not the kind of adversary who simply accepts defeat and walks away with his tail between his legs. His track record demonstrates a pattern of relentless pursuit when it comes to his goals, and he's already proven himself willing to adapt his strategies when obstacles appear in his path. Rather than retreating to lick his wounds, Sidwell is methodically calculating his next series of moves, determined to find alternative methods to claim what he believes should rightfully be his. His conversation with Ava Jerome made his intentions crystal clear. This man doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and certainly doesn't surrender when someone stands in his way. Sidwell's psychological warfare against Port Charles leadership. General Hospital fans have watched in horror as Sidwell has escalated his campaign of intimidation against both Sonny and Mayor Laura Collins. His tactics have grown increasingly brazen and disturbing, revealing a man who recognizes no boundaries and respects no authority. The situation involving Professor Henry Hank Dalton perfectly illustrates Sidwell's twisted methodology and his complete disregard for human life. After dealing with Dalton, a phrase that carries sinister implications about the professor's fate, Sidwell made the shocking decision to plant Dalton's lifeless body directly in Laura Collins' car trunk. This wasn't a random act of disposal. It was a calculated psychological attack designed to terrorize the mayor and demonstrate his reach into every corner of Port Charles. Sidwell understood exactly how Laura would respond to such a gruesome discovery. He predicted she would panic in that moment of horror, and that her desperation would drive her straight to Sonny Corinthos for help in managing this nightmare. By engineering this situation, Sidwell accomplished multiple objectives simultaneously. He implicated Laura in a potential murder cover-up, forced her into compromising her principles, created a crisis that would consume both her and Sonny's attention, and sent an unmistakable message about his willingness to cross any line. The twisted brilliance of this move lies in how it turned Laura's position as mayor into a vulnerability rather than a source of power. -1 episodes bring Sidwell's next power play. According to the latest spoilers, viewers should brace themselves for dramatic developments in the upcoming December episodes. On December 4th, audiences will witness Sidwell making another bold assertion of his growing influence over Port Charles. This particular episode promises to showcase Sidwell's darker personality traits as he reveals just how far he's willing to go to achieve dominance in this territory. The spoilers indicate that Sidwell will be flexing his muscles in ways that leave no doubt about his intentions and capabilities. Then, on December 5th, the consequences of Sidwell's latest maneuver will become devastatingly clear as Sonny Corinthos finds himself backed into a corner, a position that the powerful mob boss absolutely detests and rarely experiences. Sonny has spent decades building his empire and establishing himself as the undisputed authority in Port Charles' criminal underworld, which makes this feeling of powerlessness particularly infuriating for him. The spoilers strongly suggest that Sidwell will have uncovered some leverage over Sonny, some piece of information or some threat so significant that even the seemingly untouchable Corinthos will feel genuine pressure. Sidwell's ultimate objective remains unchanged. He wants to force Sonny into surrendering control of those waterfront piers, effectively crippling Sonny's operations and establishing himself as the new power broker in town. The question isn't whether Sidwell will make this move, it's how devastating the consequences will be for everyone involved. The dangerous clash between two stubborn forces. Sonny Corinthos didn't build his empire by backing down from threats or bowing to intimidation, and his legendary stubbornness is about to collide head-on with Sidwell's equally relentless determination. Sonny's entire reputation rests on his ability to maintain control and never show weakness to his enemies. Allowing someone like Sidwell to dominate him would undermine everything Sonny has constructed over the past 3 decades. There's absolutely no guarantee that Sidwell's strategy will achieve the results he's anticipating, but he's clearly prepared to make an extremely aggressive move that will push Sonny's patience to its absolute breaking point. The danger in this situation is that Sidwell may be underestimating just how far Sonny is willing to go when truly backed into a corner. While Sonny generally prefers to handle problems through negotiation and strategic maneuvering, he's never completely ruled out more permanent solutions to threats against his family and business. The spoilers hint that Sonny has considered the possibility of eliminating Sidwell entirely, removing the problem at its source, though such drastic action would only be deployed as a final option. Sidwell is playing an incredibly dangerous game, treading on ground that has proven fatal for many of Sonny's previous adversaries. His reported involvement in the attack on young Rocco Falconeri while the boy was in juvenile detention demonstrates that Sidwell has no qualms about targeting Sonny and Laura's teenage grandson. Using an innocent child as a pawn in this power struggle reveals a level of ruthlessness that could ultimately seal Sidwell's fate. What's coming next in this explosive storyline? The burning questions facing General Hospital viewers revolve around what Sidwell's next moves will entail and how they'll impact the broader Port Charles community. Will Sidwell's upcoming actions create even more complications for young Rocco, potentially putting the teenager in physical danger once again? Could Sidwell's schemes somehow worsen Laura's already precarious situation regarding the Dalton body and her involvement in covering up that crime? What specific circumstances will push Sonny from feeling pressured to feeling absolutely trapped by Sidwell's machinations? The latest General Hospital spoilers promise that fans can anticipate more shocking revelations and unexpected developments involving Sidwell's campaign against Sonny in the very near future. These developments will force Sonny to confront escalating threats not just to his business interests, but to his family members who could become collateral damage in this war. Sonny's protective instincts regarding his loved ones are legendary, and threatening his family is the fastest way to transform him from a calculating businessman into a vengeful force of nature. When Sonny finally reaches his breaking point and the spoilers indicate that moment is rapidly approaching, Sidwell is going to discover what happens when you push Port Charles' most dangerous man too far. The retaliation will be swift, decisive, and potentially deadly, reminding everyone why Sonny Corinthos has remained on top for so long. Next, we will learn about the explosive family drama that's tearing apart the Quartermaine household and threatening to destroy relationships that have taken years to build. The tensions between Brooklyn Quartermaine, her newly acknowledged son Giovanni Joe Palmieri, and Dante Falconeri have reached a boiling point that promises to reshape the entire family dynamic in Port Charles. Brooklyn's breakthrough moment. Brooklyn Quartermaine has achieved what many thought impossible. She's finally broken through the emotional barriers with her son Joe and established a genuine mother-son bond. This monumental shift in their relationship represents years of heartache, secrecy, and missed opportunities finally coming to fruition. The journey to this point has been anything but smooth, with Brooklyn wrestling with her own guilt over giving up her child and the complicated circumstances that kept them apart for so long. Her transformation from a self-centered young woman who made countless mistakes to a mature, thoughtful parent figure has been remarkable to witness. The growth she's demonstrated mirrors the wisdom she absorbed from strong female role models like her mother Lois Cerullo and her formidable grandmother Tracy Quartermaine, both of whom never hesitated to call her out on her mistakes while supporting her through every stumble. The emotional breakthrough between Brooklyn and Joe didn't happen overnight. It was the result of consistent effort, vulnerability, and Brooklyn's willingness to meet Joe where he was emotionally. She proved that she's no longer the impulsive girl who thought she could have everything without making sacrifices. Instead, she's shown herself to be a woman capable of putting someone else's needs before her own desires, a quality that's essential for any parent. The fact that Joe felt comfortable enough to call her mom speaks volumes about the trust they've built and the genuine connection they've formed despite the complicated circumstances of their relationship. Danny's explosive temper creates new problems. While Brooklyn has been making strides forward, Dante Falconeri has been taking giant steps backward in his relationship with Joe. His explosive confrontation with the young man has undone months of careful relationship building and created a rift that may prove difficult to repair. Dante's anger stemmed from his belief that Joe failed to protect his younger half-brother Rocco Falconeri during a dangerous situation, and his protective instincts went into overdrive in the worst possible way. Rather than having a calm, rational discussion about his concerns, Dante unleashed his fury on Joe in a manner that was both harsh and deeply unfair. The irony isn't lost on longtime viewers that Dante's temperament is a direct inheritance from his father, the notorious mob boss Sonny Corinthos. Despite being raised primarily by Olivia Quartermaine in the working-class neighborhood of Bensonhurst, far from Sonny's influence, Dante still carries that Corinthos fire in his blood. When his family is threatened, or when he perceives a threat, rationality goes out the window and raw emotion takes over. Sonny spent decades learning to control his impulses and temper his reactions, often with disastrous consequences along the way. It appears Dante is destined to walk a similar path, learning the hard way that rage and intimidation aren't effective parenting tools. What makes Dante's outburst particularly problematic is that he essentially pitted one son against another, creating an impossible situation where Joe feels rejected and blamed while Rocco witnesses the family discord. This kind of divisive parenting approach rarely leads to anything positive and often creates lasting damage in family relationships. Dante's inability to see past his protective instincts for Rocco and recognize that Joe is also his son, also deserving of patience, understanding, and the benefit of the doubt, reveals a troubling blind spot in his character. The question now becomes whether Dante will recognize his mistake before it's too late, or whether his pride will prevent him from making amends. Brooklyn takes a stand. Brooklyn has made it crystal clear that she won't stand by silently while Dante mistreats their son. Her declaration that Dante was wrong to lash out at Joe the way he did signals a major turning point in their dynamic. For perhaps the first time, Brooklyn is putting her role as Gio's mother above her long-standing friendship with Dante, and she's prepared to face whatever consequences come from that decision. This represents a maturity and strength of conviction that Brooklyn hasn't always displayed in the past, when she might have tried to keep the peace or avoid confrontation to maintain relationships. The confrontation that's brewing between Brooklyn and Dante promises to be explosive and memorable. Picture the scene unfolding in the Grand Quartermaine living room, where so many family dramas have played out over the years. Brooklyn, armed with righteous maternal fury, laying out exactly why Dante's behavior was unacceptable and demanding that he apologize to Joe and make things right. Dante, stubborn and defensive, refusing to admit that his protective instincts led him to commit a serious parenting error. The argument escalating until other family members inevitably get involved, with the Quartermaines likely backing Brooklyn's position, while perhaps Olivia tries to defend her son. Brooklyn's bold move might extend beyond just words. She could invite Joe to move back into the Quartermaine mansion, offering him the family home and support that Dante has essentially withdrawn. Such a decision would be both symbolic and practical, showing Joe that he has a place in the family regardless of Dante's current attitude. However, this move could also trigger Dante's departure from the mansion, potentially taking Rocco with him and creating an even deeper family divide. The Quartermaine estate, which has housed multiple generations and weathered countless storms, could become the physical manifestation of this family split. The high stakes of family loyalty. What makes this situation particularly compelling is that Brooklyn is risking a friendship that goes back to their childhood. She and Dante have known each other for practically their entire lives, growing up in connected families with deep roots in both Port Charles society and the Italian-American community. Walking away from that history isn't easy, but Brooklyn has apparently decided that her duty to her son supersedes even decades of friendship. This choice reflects the fundamental transformation she's undergone from someone who often put her own needs first to a mother willing to sacrifice personal relationships for her child's well-being. The broader implications of this family feud extend beyond just the three main players. How will the Quartermaine family respond to this internal conflict? Tracy, never one to suffer fools, will likely have strong opinions about Dante's behavior and his treatment of her great-grandson. Olivia will be caught in the impossible position of wanting to support her son while potentially recognizing that he made a serious mistake. Sonny might see echoes of his own parenting failures in Dante's actions, adding another layer of complexity to an already tangled situation. Dante's crossroads. The real question facing Dante now is whether he can swallow his pride and recognize that he was wrong before the damage becomes irreparable. Being sidelined by Brooklyn in parenting decisions regarding Joe will undoubtedly sting his ego and challenge his sense of authority. Dante has always prided himself on being a good father, a better one than Sonny was to him for much of his life. But this situation is testing that self-image in uncomfortable ways. Can he admit that protective instincts don't excuse hurtful behavior? Will he be able to see that treating Joe with respect and patience is just as important as protecting Rocco from harm? The path forward for Dante requires genuine humility and the willingness to make amends, qualities that don't always come easily to someone with Corinthos blood running through their veins. He'll need to have an honest conversation with Joe, acknowledging that his anger was misdirected and that he expects too much too soon from a young man who is still finding his place in this complicated family structure. More than that, he'll need to demonstrate through his actions over time that he truly sees Joe as his son, not just as someone who should have protected Rocco better. The question remains whether Dante can evolve quickly enough to salvage this relationship, or whether Brooklyn will need to be both mother and father figure to Joe going forward. The coming weeks promise dramatic confrontations, heartfelt conversations, and potentially permanent shifts in family alliances as the situation continues to unfold in Port Charles.